Good morning, folks. Today is the 10th day of Teves. It's the day when the Babylonians laid siege to our temple, and it wasn't pretty. So we fast today. And it was really the beginning of the assault on our first Commonwealth, which led to ultimately the destruction of our first temple. And that being said, I think it's appropriate for us to conclude the discourse on anti-Semitism today. Let's not just conclude the discourse today. Let's conclude the chapter of anti-Semitism once and for all. Let's be done with it.
Once and for all.
Let's cure it. Let's cure anti-Semitism. Let's be done with it, folks. Let's be finished with it, and hopefully we can move on with our lives as we regain consciousness. Wouldn't that be nice? When anti-Semitism leads us to where we need it to take us, and once we do that, we will be all guns blazing and ready to roll. Rock and roll. To be able to bring Mashiach, which is exactly what we're going to learn about today. So here we are. We're about to start. Good morning, Terry, Corey, and Elaine. Okay. Just going to the money changes over there. Okay. So, chapter 9. We're on page 62. What we're about to learn right now is where the Rebbe makes that stunning statement, defining the reason for anti-Semitism. Here it is, folks. I've been talking about this for weeks already. This is the moment which, to me, electrified the entire discourse, the entire conversation of anti-Semitism. And which when the Rebbe says that the purpose of the exile is in order to wake us up. Folks in the video, can you hear all the money in the background over there, or are you okay? Hopefully you're okay. I hope it's not too distracting. Okay, I'm going to go straight into it. I'm going to try to focus here because I'm getting distracted. So it's the distractions that are going to keep me focused, just exactly like we're learning about right now. Okay, so the idea that we're about to learn is that there's a purpose for your obstacles. That's the idea. That the reason why you have a hurdle before you is in order to teach you how to jump. Does that make sense? The reason you have a hurdle, you know what a hurdle is?
Like a thing the horse goes over.
Yeah, well, people also jump over it, yeah. In the races. Good, thank you, Terry. So what happens is that the reason there's a hurdle is not because you're supposed to encounter, you're not supposed to stop, exactly. Yeah, that's a very nice way to put it. The purpose of the hurdle is not to stop you, it's for you to soar. Nice. The purpose of the hurdle, now at first glance, you look at a hurdle, you're like, oh, obstacle, gotta stop. Comes the enlightened person and says, no, the hurdle's not there for you to stop, it's for you to fly. Same thing, says the Rebbe, is the purpose of anti-Semitism. The purpose of the exile in general is sent to us by God, because everything comes to us from God, in order for us to bring out our oil, to find our oil. Alan says that steel sharpens steel. Okay, that's interesting. That it takes a hard place to make you hard. Diamond, well, not diamond. Okay, but steel sharpens steel. That's right. Okay, good. So the purpose of the steel is not to stop you; it's in order to sharpen you. Nice. I like these metaphors. Write them down. Second, just bear with me a moment. So the purpose of the steel is not to break you, says Alan, but to sharpen you. Applying that same principle, we're going to do that right now in the words of the Rebbe. The idea of lighting the Chanukah lamp from when the sun sets, as opposed to the temple lamps which were in the daytime, refers especially to the darkness of exile, especially the doubled and redoubled darkness of the times of the advent of Mashiach. So the purpose of the Chanukah lights is in order to illuminate the darkness of the exile. It's in order to transform the darkness of the exile. This then is the lesson of the Chanukah lamp for every single person during the time of exile. What's the lesson? That the purpose of the darkness of exile is to awaken the service of self-sacrifice, through which the darkness is refined and transformed into light. That's the purpose. The reason you experience opposition is in order for you to bring out the best in you and to transform the opposition. Like Tanya, chapter 7, quotes the Zohar, which tells us the famous analogy of the reason, of the context of the evil inclination, the Yetzer Hara. The Zohar talks about the skilled seductress. What's the goal of the skilled seductress? She works for the king to test the prince. Though she makes it look like she's trying to make him fail, her hope and dream is for him to exhibit the fortitude and reject her. Right. This is the... It's hard. Hey, let me tell you. It's hard. This is hard. It's so hard. You've got to be able to overcome the perception of your eyes. You've got to be able to go deeper than what you see, because what you see is obstacles, and be able to see the light with your heart when all your eyes see is darkness, right? You've got to be able to broaden your eyes and see the bigger picture, understand the greater context in the heat of the moment, in the passion of the moment. That's not easy. Here you are, you're stressed out, you're anxious, you're afraid, you're fearful, and you've got to be able to stop, drop, and roll. You got to be able to say, 1 second, pause, let's see the bigger picture. Oh, Hashem is in control. Oh, Hashem sent me this to make me stronger. Okay, mitigate fear, introduce trust, faith, purpose, introduce deeper talents, right? By the way, you would never be able to bring out that degree of trust if not for the obstacle. And that's your hidden pitcher of oil right there. You're living such a devoted life, or a life that you never would have reached a devotion you never could have reached if not that you had obstacles. Right? And the Rebbe continues, and through the collective service of every single member of the children of Israel together, or at least the majority of them, since the majority of an entity is considered like its entirety, and even through one mitzvah of one Jew. So the Rebbe says, through the work of every single Jew, or at least the majority of every Jew, or at least one mitzvah of one Jew. So he starts off with high expectations, and he ends up one mitzvah of one Jew. He tips the scale to the side of favor for himself and the entire world, and causes for himself and for them deliverance and salvation. Now that's quite an exciting concept. So I'm trying to read that one phrase again. The purpose of the darkness of exile is to awaken the service of self-sacrifice, through which the darkness is refined and transformed into light. To me, that's a transformative directive. That's teaching us that Hashem sends us our problems in order that we can find that prayer. He doesn't give us prayers so we can solve our problems. It's really it's a paradigm shift in how we see our problems and how we see our struggles and how we see the opposition, the anti-Semites that come to challenge us. That the purpose is not that they are there just to challenge us. They're not working on their own. They're not private contractors. They are agents of the Almighty, there to bring out the best in us. Folks, are you okay with this idea?
Sure. Mm-hmm.
Let's wrap it up in chapter 10, page 64. I mean, we've been speaking about this at great length. At this point, you can just see it for yourself in the text. And that's what we just did today. Now, if any mitzvah can bring deliverance to the world, certainly an increase. I just want to comment on that for a moment. The Rebbe started off by saying if all the Jews, or the majority of the Jews, or at least one Jew does one mitzvah, what's the significance of one Jew, one mitzvah? What do you think is the significance of that?
Another way of lighting to the world.
Well, the Rebbe explains elsewhere in a different discourse, Bilam Mavis, when he says that death will be removed from the world. There he explains that each mitzvah is infinity. And what does it matter if you have one piece of infinity or many pieces of infinity? They're all infinity. You don't have more infinity or less infinity. A little bit of infinity is infinity, right? So essentially, one single mitzvah, there the Rebbe says a stunning revelation. He says over there in that discourse, just a quick tangent here, something which to me is really a whole different angle in Tanya. What the Rebbe is doing in that discourse, just a bit of a tangent here. It says in Tanya like this. It says in Tanya that only a tzaddik can abhor evil entirely and love holiness entirely. But anyone who's less than a tzaddik, like a Beinani, like a Beinani or a Rasha, is incapable of abhorring evil entirely or of loving holiness entirely. But then the Rebbe says that even a sinner, this is a novelty in Tanya, which like blew my mind, that even a sinner is able to reach a momentary experience of being tzaddik status every time he does a mitzvah, because a mitzvah is an act of infinity. What? Okay, but the Alter Rebbe does not say that in Tanya. It's an addition that the Rebbe adds onto the Tanya. He says that when you do a mitzvah, you actually are experiencing, you've tapped into infinity, and you've become infinite at that moment. You've unleashed, you've completely shattered your glass ceiling for that moment. And I believe that's what the Rebbe means in this discourse when he says that even one mitzvah of one Jew can actually make all the difference, because one mitzvah is one act of infinity. You've dug a hole into the well. Now comes shooting out. Let's wrap it up and tie it all together with Chanukah, and how Chanukah ties to Mashiach. Now, if any mitzvah can bring deliverance to the world, certainly an increase in the fulfillment of the mitzvah of the Chanukah lamp would bring deliverance. Chanukah, which is designed specifically to transform the darkness. For this mitzvah is especially related to the deliverance and the salvation, the redemption that will occur through the Mashiach, since Mashiach, as well as Elijah, herald of the redemption. They are of the 8 princes, which is identical to the concept of the 8 lamps of Chanukah. There's eight princes, which interesting concept. There are 8 princes, which are the let's read about this. The verse in Micha, the prophet, discusses future Jewish leadership in the days of Mashiach. It says, if Assyria comes to our land and treads upon our palaces, then we will set up 7 shepherds and 8 officers against them. Mashiach will, with the aid of these 7 shepherds and 8 princes, will destroy Assyria and prevent it from invading Israel again. The Talmud in Sukkah asks, who are the 7 shepherds? It answers, David at the center, Adam, Seth, Methuselah at his right, and Abraham, Jacob, and Moses at his left. Yes, Isaac was left out of that list. Okay. The Talmud continues, who are the 8 princes? They are Jesse, Saul, David's father and father-in-law, Samuel, David's mentor, Amos, Zephaniah, Tzidkiyahu, the prophets, Eliyahu, and Mashiach. So basically, these are the 8 leaders of the times of Mashiach. They correspond, obviously, the Rebbe says, to the 8 lamps of the Chanukah menorah. There's another aspect to the special connection between the Chanukah lamps and the future redemption. Just as the Chanukah lamps never cease. What does that mean, never cease? That the mitzvah of Chanukah candles will continue even after Mashiach comes. Likewise, the future redemption will be an eternal redemption, after which exile is not possible. After the 3rd and final redemption, there can be no more room for exile. Similarly, the 3rd Beis HaMikdash, 3rd temple, is an eternal temple which will never cease. And all of this will be with the coming of our righteous Mashiach. May come and redeem us and lead us proudly to our land. May it be very soon. So we see, just in closing, that Chanukah is closely connected, obviously, to Mashiach, not only because Chanukah is about 8 and 8 princes and 8 lamps, but also because the idea of Chanukah is to light up the night. How do you light up the night? With the oil that was not touched, not contaminated by the Greeks. Let's just take a quick dive into who these 7 and 8 shepherds are. Like physical shepherds who physically feed and nourish their sheep, there are 7 spiritual shepherds who feed different spiritual elements to Israel. Abraham, for example, nurtures love of God. Jacob nurtures mercy, and Moses nurtures faith. To draw forth these attributes to Israel, it is necessary that they be nurtured by our great shepherds. The shepherds infuse these attributes into Israel so that Israel may internalize them, for such is the function of a Jewish leader. You know, the purpose of a Jewish leader, a Rebbe, is a shepherd of faith. It's called a Roy and Ne'eman, either a faithful shepherd or a shepherd of faith. The purpose is that the shepherd should shepherd faith into the people of Israel. That's the purpose of a Rebbe, is that he inspires faith, he inspires leadership qualities into his students, right? Hence, there are 7 of these shepherds, for as mentioned above, 7 represents the cycle of nature. Please don't check the table. 7 represents the cycle of nature, the natural order within which these attributes are positioned. Moreover, the shepherds feed and nourish, they provide internal spiritual sustenance. By contrast, the 8 princes were not leaders of Israel, but independent, righteous individuals. You know, Jesse and some of the others were not leaders, they were independent contractors. In spiritual terms, they provide the energy for Israel to serve God in a manner that transcends nature in a manner of makifin, much like a prince who, unlike a king, is removed from the populace. There are therefore 8 of them, as the number 8 represents that which is beyond nature. So when Assyria strikes, it will primarily be the 8 princes who will drive them off, for they possess that transcendent power with which to fight evil and spiritual impurity. The 8 princes are thus related to the concept of the 8 Chanukah lamps. So the Greeks contaminated all the oils in the sanctuary, conspiring to cause Israel to forget your Torah. Therefore, to win this war, it was necessary to elicit a transcendent divine light, the supernal makifim, a dimension embodied by the 8 princes. Friends, this really concludes this discussion, and I'd like to open it up for any questions, if anybody has any reflections, questions, or thoughts. Jacob is one of the seven princes. Isaac isn't, but that's a whole discussion. We'll have to figure out.
You don't like Isaac?
I have a question for after.
For after, okay. Harvey, what are your thoughts?
I have a question for after.
For after, okay, off the record. All right. Anybody else on the record? Okay. So, Andy says we receive challenges that we are equipped to handle. Right. That's the bottom line, guys. That's the takeaway. The takeaway is Chanukah is much more than donuts and latkes. The takeaway is Chanukah is about overcoming anti-Semitism. How do you overcome anti-Semitism? When you dig deep within yourself, when you summon the strength that you need to overcome adversity. That's the key. When you summon the strength that's necessary to overcome adversity, that is the purpose of the adversity. Hashem sends it to us for a reason. Yes, it hurts. And yes, it's uncomfortable. And if we had a choice, we'd probably opt out. But we weren't given the choice. Hashem sends us adversity in order to summon that strength. When you can summon that degree of commitment to Hashem, you have fulfilled the purpose of the adversity, and thus you have neutralized the adversity. That is the Chanukah story, where we don't even make any big deal out of the victory of the Greeks, because that was just a consequence of summoning the strength within us. The key was finding the oil. That was the moment of summoning the strength to overcome the adversity. And this idea, I want you to know, it really needs to be meditated upon. What we learned today, what we learned in the recent weeks, it's been 2 or 3 weeks we've been learning this, is that we just need to meditate upon this idea. It's one thing to, now we've reached the level of Bina, where you understand it. You understand it, very nice. Chachma Bina, idea, understanding, good. But the question is, do you feel it? Do you have what it takes to feel this when you are faced with adversity? When life hits you, slaps you across the face with financial or relationships catastrophes, will you have what it takes? Will you be ready to handle it, or will you get whiplashed? That's the question I leave you with. And that's why I encourage you, friends, to watch this video series over and maybe again, to write notes, to think about it, to meditate on it. And when you meditate on it, and I have to tell you, I speak for myself, I'm teaching this, and I know that I need to internalize it. The way I'm internalizing it, the way I really internalize a lot of things, is by writing. When I write about it is when I really have to run it through my own filters. And that's when it really becomes my own. So that's my way of doing it. But if you have your way of meditating, go for it and internalize this extraordinary idea. Terry, in Mashiach times, will we light the Chanukah candles in the light? I don't think so. I think like this. Here's what I'm thinking. Then in Mashiach times, it's going to be very deep. We'll light the candles in the dark, because just like today, we transform darkness into light, then negativity into positivity. When Mashiach comes, you'll be experiencing infinite levels of infinity. And it's those levels of infinity which you'll want to be breaking open. Right? God will give us a degree of revelation. We'll say, no, that's not enough. We want more. We want to be closer. So what is today's light? No, today's darkness becomes tomorrow's light. Gotcha, Al. Thank you very much. And Terry, thumbs up. All right, guys. I think we had 8 lessons on this discourse. Thank you very much, Winston, for putting it all together. I'm going to wish everybody a happy Chanukah. Happy Chanukah. Let's keep Chanukah lighting all year long.
And you know what? You don't want to ignore darkness.
You want to conquer it. You got to conquer the darkness.
If you stop lighting the candle, and you leave the darkness the way it is, it might overcome the light of it.
Fair enough. All right, folks, I'm going to wrap it up over here and take it off the table. Anybody got questions or comments, please send me an email to rabbi@jewishgardens.com. That's rabbi@jewishgardens.com. We'd love to hear from you. We'll hopefully resume with the Tanya
Susan.
Hopefully tomorrow.
Yeah,